Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the hashtag AtoAni Series, where we share to you valuable insights about different sustainability topics that are relevant nowadays, such as the topic about bioplastics and how it has a more sustainable origins and a responsible end to their life, which is what we will be discussing today with our guest panelists, whom we will get to know more later. So, to everyone who is watching right now, whether you are new to this series or have watched the previous episodes, stay tuned and do put in the comment section below where you are watching from. You can also share this live stream to your respective social media accounts to have more people learn from the discussion. This is the 10th episode of the hashtag AtoAni Learn series. Tonight's topic is bioplastics, exploring routes to sustainable packaging. I am Jonas De Leon, your moderator for tonight. I am a community intern at the AtoAni BioPack Enterprise, a second year student in the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City, studying food science and technology. I am an advocate of various causes such as inclusivity and diversity, quality education and healthcare for all, mental health care, sustainable food packaging, and the 2030 SDGs. Same as everyone here, I am excited to learn more about this topic from our special guest panelists. We know that conventional plastics have major drawbacks when it comes to their production and disposal, but we also know that they are pretty awesome to use. Bioplastics, on the other hand, may have more sustainable origins and are responsible to their end of life. But when it comes to performance, the question is, can bioplastics ever really compete? Hmm. Next slide. I'm really curious about this topic because it's been growing. This has been a controversial issue for environmentalists and scientists. And of course, companies are also included in this situation. What you are seeing right now on your screens is a statistical infographics created by the Ocean Conservancy Group from the concept of Jambeck and Kozer et al. There are, they said that there are 192 countries bordering Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans that has produced, hear this guys, 2.5 billion metric tons of solid waste in 2010, okay? 2.5 billion, okay? That fact was from 2010. We don't know, okay? We don't have the facts right now for 2020, okay? But that's big, okay, guys? That's big. And guess what? An estimated 8 million metric tons of plastic from that solid waste, from the 2.5 million tons, okay, are entering the ocean the same year, okay? So bioplastics are
Okay, I'm very sorry everyone because connection got lost. You know, we're having mutual problems, but rest assured I am back. Okay, so as I was saying, okay, now from that 2.5 billion metric tons of solid waste, 275 million metric tons is from plastic. Okay, is from plastic waste. And what's scary is that every year 8 million metric tons of plastic goes into the ocean. Okay, so that's really terrifying to hear. Next slide, please. Now, let's take a look at the plastic consumption in the country here in the Philippines. You know, they scientists have predicted that by 2025, municipal solid waste will generate from the cities of the Philippines will increase by, guess what, 165%. Okay, that's 29,315 metric tons to 77,776 tons per day. Okay, and if you're going to associate it with statistics, there's an increase of 37%. Okay, from the 30,000 tons per day of plastic. That's per day. Okay, that's daily. Okay, despite having a management act, okay, this is kind of mind-boggling. Okay, we have various management waste management acts, but in the Philippines, we're still considered the world's largest polluter. Okay, and those come from the residential areas that generates 56.7% of the consumption compared to the commercial ones. Okay, um I have always thought that commercial ones do produce a lot of waste, but um, this is an eye opener because residential ones generates 56.7%, almost no, not almost half, but greatly half, okay, of the whole um industry. From the 8 million tons of plastic waste of the world, the Philippines generates 2.7 million tons of plastic annually, and 20% of that leaks into the ocean. Guess what, ha? 2.7 million out of the 8 million. That's only from the Philippines. Okay? And next slide. Now, I have this terrible question. Why is it so many? Okay, why is it why do we have this great large numbers? It is because 79% of the plastic waste in the Philippines are accumulated in the landfills, dumps, or the natural environment. Supot, okay, if you know supot, or the single-use plastics completely weighs 150 out of 300 million tons. Okay, on single-use plastic. Okay, so when you buy something on the grocery or when you buy something in the market, okay, you use plastic because it's efficient to use, of course. It doesn't have leaks like that. It's uses, okay, its characteristics and its properties. But after you throw them away, do you actually think where do this single-use plastic go to? Okay. Um, and we need to agree that our local government units have been struggling to implement the directives of the Republic Act 9003, which is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2009. Um, it's really eye-opening. Okay, I am having goosebumps over here because that's a lot of waste. That's a lot of waste, and it's 2020. Okay, next slide. To help us know more about our solution tonight, at this point, our guest panelists for today will share some practical insights about this topic and more. Okay. You know, I'm excited to ask him some questions and ask your questions as well. So don't forget to type them in the comment section below of this live stream so that we can view them for our panelists to answer later. Don't worry, guys. We can answer all of your questions. We will have a separate place for that. And we would also love if you could share some likes, hearts, and care buttons, reacts on this Facebook live stream, or even share this live stream on your respective Facebook accounts. Okay? Let me introduce to you our guest panelist. Our guest panelist for tonight has a master's degree in microbiology at the University of Santo Tomas and studies biotechnology at the Hamburg University in Germany. He is the founder of BioPlastic or morPH, which is more fun, okay? A social enterprise redesigning traditionally plastic-based products with 100% compostable polymer and is a proud partner of Make Sense Philippines. Here is Sir Jeremy Torres. You may now turn on your camera and microphone, Sir Jeremy. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, how
Can
are
you,
you?
can you allow me to open the video?
Of course, yes.
There. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Bye.
wow! Ganda
Yeah.
ng background. That's cool. Okay. You know, ang dami, I've got a lot of numbers. Okay. Those were significant numbers. Those
I
came from
know.
2010. Okay. Diba? That's really scary. We don't know what the future brings in for us. Okay. We really want to know what could be the future for sustainability. And I think this is one of the great solutions. So, are you ready?
Yes,
Let's get into
I think
it.
so. I think so.
Okay. So, okay. So this is the first question. Okay. You know, many of our viewers are really do not have any idea with bioplastics. They don't know. They only know they know that maybe this is an alternative to plastics and this is maybe another design for plastics. But can you please explain to us, you know, in maybe in a market term, what are bioplastics?
Okay, so first of all, can I be allowed to speak Taglish ba? Para mas
Of course, kaya natin yan.
para mas ano dyan. And then before I directly answer the question, no, kasi it's actually a good
Mhm.
first question since many of us, even yung mga may alam about bioplastics, have different
Yeah.
meanings, no, different definitions. So allow me to share probably a short story. I hope just a short story, just to give context. And then later, I promise it
Take
will
your
make
time.
sense. It will make sense kung
Yes,
bakit
of
ko
course.
ikwento, okay? So just
Yes, of
allow
course,
allow
of course.
allow me to share my screen. Pwede ba?
Okay. Yes, yes.
Okay.
We can share the screen.
There you go. Okay. Yan, I think
Ayan.
meron na, no? Yun.
Yes.
So before I directly define bioplastic, so balikan muna natin ng onti yung just the word plastic. No? Kasi for many of us, and I think many of your members of your community, what's in their mind is yung bag, di ba? Yung pang grocery, yung pang pamalengke. And obviously,
Yes. Mm-mm.
plastic talaga yun.
Mm-mm.
No? But just in a general term, plastic can actually simply be considered just an adjective, no? Which means, so meaning it describes something that can be molded. Okay. So when when we look at it like that, mas yung sinabi mong numbers kanina, mas nakakatakot. 'Di ba?
Yes,
Kasi
tama.
kasi it's not
Oo.
it's not only the bags o yung single use na sinasabi mo kanina, but practically itong kaharap ko ngayon, yung laptop ko, it's also plastic, 'di ba?
Mm-mm.
And eventually
Yeah, actually kahit anong makita natin ngayon, more
exactly.
plastic, 'di ba?
Exactly.
Mm.
And what, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, pag nasira to, tatapon ko na lang din, di ba? Wala naman din akong choice.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
And the
Mm-mm.
next definition that I like to highlight is, it may be natural or synthetic. Okay? So,
Yes.
balikan lang natin to. Kita ba yung buong slide? Kita, no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Just to review, hindi ko naman iisa-isahin, no? But commercially, we have 7 categories, but this is really arbitrary. Because yung number 7, doon tinapon lahat nung wala doon sa 6.
Yeah.
So,
yun pa lang yun, 'di ba?
Instead of creating several more categories like 8, 9, 10, 11, nilagay na lang lahat sa other. No? So, which makes it
Yes.
more difficult to handle. But anyway, these are the 7 major types of plastic. And then I'll go a bit for the history of plastics. But can you share with me, Jonas, kailan sa tingin mo, kasi it's been, sabi mo controversial for at least the last few years, di ba? But obviously we know
Yes.
na it goes way longer than that. But kailan sa tingin mo nag-start yung paggamit natin ng plastic?
Ang idea ko for dyan, kasi I've seen 70s people gumagamit na niyan. I've seen a lot of them na gumagamit na ng plastic. Kasi sa Philippines, uso bayong pa, ratan, yung mga ganyan. Pero I've seen a lot, meron na rin. So, guess ko 70s.
1970s. That's actually very close. Very, very close.
Oh.
But extend pa natin further, no? Just to have a better story and narrative. Actually, it goes way longer than this. Nakalagay dito 1800s, but it goes longer than this. They say, if you search other sources, they say like since the time of like Aztecs, no, yung mga Native Americans. Tatanungin mo, paano sila nagka-plastic noon, no? So what they actually use is rubber.
Oh,
okay. Yung sap na galing sa puno. Kasi 'di ba, I described plastic kanina as anything that can be molded.
Yes.
So rubber, yung galing sa puno, can be molded obviously, 'di ba? And it's natural, yung tulad ng pagkaka-describe ko kanina. So, in a way, actually, you can consider it as the first bioplastic, 'di ba? Kasi galing sa puno. Okay? And then eventually, we use like for example, yung mga tao before used like yung mga buto ng hayop or horns, and they molded it to, I don't know, bowls or jewelry, palamuti, no, sa kanila.
Oh, okay.
So you can also consider that as an early form of plastic kasi they molded it and it's functional, di ba? But in terms of just synthetics, yung ginawa ng tao, yung mostly ginawa ng tao, let's go back to 1800s. The first use of synthetic plastics, it's called celluloid. So if you're familiar with cellulose, di ba, yung sa halaman, yung with AtoAni, it rings a bell, no? So celluloid kasi is made from cellulose. Actually, so it's nitrocellulose actually. So cellulose na tinlate ng nitrate, na nitrocellulose. Bakit siya ginawa? Bakit bigla-bigla na lang 1800s biglang may celluloid? So yung celluloid pala is a market term, ha. So yung totoong, kumbaga generic term niya is nitrocellulose. Pero yung market term niya is celluloid. So kasi funnily enough, during that time, not really funny. During that time, sabi ko nga, 'di ba, they were using bones and animal parts. Nagkaroon ng scarcity with obviously animal parts kasi pumapatay sila ng hayop, and then syempre maubos yung hayop, 'di ba? So specifically, during that time, nag-alala sila sa scarcity ng ivory. Yung galing sa elephant tusk, 'di ba? Because they create it as furniture, and typically for this story, ang gusto nilang hanapin is pamalit sa billiard ball. Okay? So, ang weird, 'di ba? Kasi yung need for something to replace a billiard ball, which is just for leisure, led to the creation of celluloid, 'di ba? Just consider that for a moment. But the problem is, yung celluloid is too soft. So hindi siya pwedeng billiard ball kasi matigas yung ivory.
Oo.
Diba? So madaling mag-crack. But eventually, people found a use for celluloid. No? And eventually, they used it for photographic films. Yung film, di ba? Mga bata ngayon, hindi na alam yung film. Di ba?
Yeah.
Hindi na alam. But before, may negative na tinatawag, di ba? Yung mga camera. So, dati gawa yun sa celluloid. And then eventually also, it was used for ping pong balls. Yung celluloid. Kasi dati,
so up until now, nagagamit pa rin?
Actually, until I think 2014 or 13, it was celluloid, yung ping pong balls. So, naging maganda, no? Naging useful yung celluloid up until the 1900s. The problem with celluloid kasi is it's very flammable. Kasi if you heard the generic term na
Okay.
sabi ko kanina, nitrocellulose, di ba? So,
Yes.
it's actually, nitrocellulose is actually a substitute for gunpowder during the time. Okay?
Oo.
So, nagiging flammable
Ang-
siya. And if you recall, yung mga dating movies, di ba yung rolyo ng film, tapos ipoproject,
Mm-mm.
minsan kasi umiinit masyado. So, nasusunog yung film. Alright? So,
Mm-mm.
by the 1900s, naghanap na sila ng pamalit sa nitrocellulose. And 1907, lumabas yung bakelite. Okay? That's again a market term. But for this one, bakelite is actually really brittle, stiff and brittle. So, ginawa siyang pamalit sa telephone casings. Yung telephone na hindi yung smartphone, obviously, yung ano pa, diikot pa.
Yung diikot pa. Yes.
And yung malalaking TV, yung malalaking casing ng TV, yun yung ginamit for bakelite. And then a few years later, lumabas naman yung cellophane. Again, if you notice, nakalagay cello, no? It's actually again made from cellulose.
Okay.
Again, made from cellulose.
Mm-mm.
But
Yes,
tama.
tama.
This one is not flammable. No? Hindi siya nasusunog. But this one is really good kasi it repels water, but it doesn't repel moisture. So meaning, pag naglagay ka ng, let's say, fruits sa loob, ginawa mo siyang bag, cellophane bag, obviously. Naglagay ka ng fruit sa loob, hindi siya mababasa from the outside. Pero, makakahinga, quote-unquote, makakahinga yung laman sa loob kasi yung moisture nakakalabas. Okay, so that's yung pinaka-property niya. And then 10 years later, 10 or so years later, lumabas na yung PVC, yung polyvinyl chloride, diba? Yun yung ginagamit natin ngayon for pipes and it was first used as yung pambalot ng circuit wires pala, which until now ginagamit natin. And
insulators.
Yes, exactly. So sumikat siya lalo nung obviously World War, lahat naman nagiging industrial, commercially used pag World War. So kasi yung mga wiring. And then by 1933, yun na yung polyethylene. Yun na yung galing sa petroleum industry, yung tira-tira nilang oil na hindi nila yung waste oil nila na hindi nila na ginagamit. Ginagawang polyethylene ng some divisions nila. But I think it was created into a bag like maybe 10 or 15 years later pa. So during the war again. So 1937, lumabas naman yung polyurethane, yun yung foam. Na I think meron nga tayong mga mask ngayon na foam di ba? So polyurethane, parang stretchable foam.
Yan,
yung polyurethane. Urethane. And then 1938, so nakita niyo 1930, dumadami na yung mga discoveries, no? And it's puro poly, di ba? Later, it will make sense. Yes. 1938 nylon, no, that's again marketing term. It's actually a polyamide, so poly rin. Nylon was initially developed to create or to replace yung stockings ng mga babae.
Okay.
Yes. Kasi
parang ang hirap naman, hindi makakahinga yung legs nila.
Hindi ko alam. Pero that time kasi naubusan na ng kanang ginagawa, I think silk.
Okay.
At least for the most part silk, but yun ang gusto nilang palitan during the time. But if you notice, 1938, malapit na again mag-war. So eventually, yung nylon, ginamit for parachutes kasi matibay yung nylon nila. Yung mga parachute lining. And then, 1941, doon na lumabas yung styrofoam. That's again a market term. Ang generic niya is polystyrene, so poly na naman. That's to replace padding, no? Styrofoam malambot, diba? Very light. Paddings, I think they said it's 90% air. So, ganyan. Diba, yun yung property niya. 1946, Tupperware, dyan na lumabas yung Tupperware. Dyan na naging commercial yung Tupperware. Until now.
Tupperware na brand.
Yes. Tupperware was actually invented 1930s, pero hindi na market ng maayos. No, pagdating ng war, syempre, again, nagkakaubusan na naman ng gamit, and then people need to store food, kasi nga war, may famine. So kailangan nila mag-store ng food, kaya naging sikat yung Tupperware. In the 1950s, after the war, lumabas na yung more quote-unquote advanced polymers, polycarbonate. The property has some similar to like parang glass. Not really glass, but parang glass.
Oh, okay.
And then polypropylene, very flexible and very durable. And then 1973 yung unang PET bottles. Ito na yung sinasabi mo, 1970, sumikat na talaga yung...
Yan.
Yes.
Mhm.
PET itself, so poly rin yan, but masyado mahaba, so wag na natin sabihin. Yung PET is invented 1940s din. Pero yung bottle itself, ginawa siyang bote 1970s. Okay? So, by the 1970s, 1980s, kontento na yung, hindi mo sa kontento, but people has seen yung advantage ng plastics, different plastics, ito mga different poly na to, ng poly PVC, polyethylene, blah, blah, blah. So, by that time, ang ginawa na lang nila is to mix and match, hindi naman match, mix yung mga compounds na to, yung mga material na to, to see kung magagamit nila sa industry nila. Like for example, yung sa electronics, di ba may plastic doon?
Yes.
So, naghanap sila kung ano bang babagay. Di ba? So, if polycarbonate is not enough by itself, hinalo nila with whatever, with I don't know, with nylon, whatever. Pinaghalo-halo nila. So, during that time. By 1980s, 70 million tons na. So, in connection to yung mga stats mo kanina, 70 million tons na yung na-produce sa buong mundo. It's mostly from the West, obviously. Diba? So, that was, let's say, starting from 1940s, 1950s, up to 1980s, which is 40 years or so, 70 million ang na-produce. Every year, Every year. Now, another 40 years after, so up to now, 2020, more than, ilan ba yan? 4 times?
Yes.
5 times. More than 5 times, no?
5 times. 5
yes,
times.
More than 5 times ang napoproduce na natin every year. Okay, so, nag-ano sa labas. Naging misa. Anyway, so yun. Yun, so na-mention mo na before, di ba? So I'll go straight ahead to bioplastic kasi it's within din naman the history of plastic. Before that, bakit ba in love tayo, di ba? Up to now, 400 million tons, million tons ang napoproduce. Bakit ba, no? Kasi in one word, maybe convenience, but specifically ito yung mga yan, high performance or good performance. It's flexible, it's versatile, no? It's durable, light. Actually, bonus na lang itong light, di ba? And it's cheap, especially during that time na yung may surplus ng oil. And then it's easily mass-produced. So, yun, napakadali niyang gawin ng maramihan. Diba? So, mas mabilis. So, to define, so this is from our Instagram. So, yan, at BioPlastics, later you'll see. I personally defined bioplastics as this one. No? They're moldable materials, either partly or wholly. So, either part lang or yung buo mismo ng plastic ay gawa sa biomass. Okay? Or their byproducts.
Okay.
So, I emphasized here biomass or their byproducts kasi it's not necessarily, for example, yung plant. It's not necessarily yung plant mismo yung gagawin.
Mismong plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pwedeng yung byproduct lang niya or yung waste product lang ng plant mismo.
Yes.
And I think the second
I
one
have read. Yeah. I have read yung parang PLA, polylactic acid.
Yeah,
that came from plants.
Yes. Tayo dyan.
Yes, okay.
And I think the second one is very important na. It may be biodegradable or non-biodegradable. Yeah, I think a lot of people has to keep this in mind. Hindi porket bioplastic is biodegradable na siya or good for the environment na. And we'll discuss this later then. Yun, so visually, ito yung let's say categories na a summary of categories kung ano yung or kung paano natin makakategorize yung bioplastic. Bio-based is clear, no? So galing nga sa biomass or their products. Biodegradable, syempre nababiodegradable. Non-biodegradable yung hindi nababiodegradable. Fossil-based, yung nakalagay sa ilalim, that just means na gawa sa oil, gawa sa petrochemical.
Okay.
Crude oil, kumbaga. So, yung so 3 quadrants there, so tatlong part ng intersection ng plane, whatever, ng tatlong quadrant is considered bioplastics. Pero yung intersection niya dun sa upper right, for this discussion, kasi nakita nyo naman ang dami-dami, di ba? For this discussion, yun yung ituturing kong bioplastic, ha? Let's be clear with that.
Yan, yung PLA,
Yes,
PHA,
PBS, and such like. Simply because yun yung pinaka-advantageous for the environment, di ba?
Yes.
It's bio-based and it's biodegradable. Okay, so it's renewable and it's biodegradable. Okay. Ayan, so to answer your question, ito yun, no? So yung nasa taas, yun yung bioplastic. So bio-based which are derived from biomass and or their byproducts and they're biodegradable. Okay, so aalisin natin for this discussion, itong maybe non-biodegradable. Hindi natin siya i-discuss, okay? So yun yung nandito sa upper left. Yan.
Okay. Sila bio-based.
Yes. Kasi that is very misleading. Okay? Yan. So yun yung sagot ko.
Yes. Yes, actually ang daming pinanggalingan pala ng conventional plastic.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. That will make sense later.
Yeah, I never thought 1800s. That was very useful back then. Okay? That's actually interesting. Okay, so we prepared here the life cycle of bioplastics. So it really came from you na bioplastics. We have a specific type, okay, which we consider bioplastics. We can go to the next slide, Miss Wilby. The life cycle of bioplastics. So here, if you could help me explain this. I don't think the viewers can actually see it clearly, but can you just elaborate the life cycle? Saan siya nanggagaling specifically? Saan siya anong ginagawa niya sa mundo natin ngayon, and paano siya nawawala? That's our question.
Okay. So I'll just refer na lang dito sa visual kasi para mas makapokus tayo. So yung visual mo is more general, no? Nakalagay dyan plant material. It doesn't necessarily say kung anong plant, diba? So I'll work with that. So plant material goes to a biorefinery. Biorefinery is just a processing plant. No? If you've ever tried recycling paper before, di ba, ibabasain mo.
Yes.
Then, di ba, ilalagay mo sa parang screen, di ba, parang yung sealed screen. Yun lang practically din yung biorefinery. So, it's not necessarily something scary, kasi di ba mukhang factory. Yes. Di ba? So, biorefinery is just a processing plant na, dun i-store, dun i-process, whatever. So, I will work on the assumption na the refinery will not put additives there, synthetic additives na like, let's say, PP lining or a PET lining. I'll work with the assumption na pure lang yung plant material, okay? After processing it, so yun na yung material, bioplastic material. So it depends kung anong klaseng machine yung meron kayo. If you can actually have a molding machine dun sa biorefinery mo, then ang lalabas na is yung actual end product. Diba? Let's say if it's a plastic bag, then it's a plastic bag. If it's a cutlery, then cutlery. Diba? Kung bowl. But if not, then you can just produce, let's say, powder or pellets. Diba? Kasi yun naman talaga yung pinaka-raw state niya. Diba? Yes. And then, let's say if it's in powder or pellets, it will be formed, so it will be distributed to plastic converters or plastic manufacturers. Okay. Let's try. Plastic manufacturers or converters, and then it will be converted. It will be molded or shaped into the actual end product. Like for example, here it's a coffee cup and a bottle, plastic bottle, and then it will go to the consumers. Like let's say for the coffee cup, coffee shop, obviously, And then ideally, following the arrow here, the composting, ideally the user, the one who drank the coffee, used the coffee cup, will
Mm-hmm.
dispose of it properly. Right?
Yes.
that's that's
Yes.
that's that's
Th-
the
we really need to take note
yeah
of that, ah. Kasi uh, maybe, 'di ba? It can go to other ways, 'di ba?
yes,
Okay.
that's the assumption of the arrow there. So
Mhm.
ideally it will go to, depending on the material, it will go to an industrial composter, which sadly the Philippines actually is limited. I
Oh.
don't think we have too many industrial composters.
Mhm.
Or if it is compatible, you can compost it in your at home, no, in your garden or in your compost pit or vermi pit or your vermi compost. Ideally, that's how it should go. It's not that, since it's bioplastic, you use it and then you throw it anywhere. Okay, so that's not how it should go.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
in the soil, that's where the magic happens. No? The soil is full of microorganisms. Okay, so
Yeah.
bacteria, fungi, parasites even.
Mhm.
And they feed on these poly things that we were talking about earlier, the polymers that we were talking about earlier. Because that's essentially sugar, that's carbon, and
Yes.
that's their food, no? The food of the microorganism or the fungi or the small insects, whatever. And
Mhm.
then eventually the minerals, because the material is already broken down, it will be converted into nutrients. That's
Mhm.
why the arrow goes back to the earth, because it's essentially nutrients to the soil,
Yes.
supposedly. Okay. And then the nutrient rich soil will support the growth of the new plant material.
Yes.
That's why it
Okay.
went back to the tree,
Mhm.
image. Yeah,
And
that's
that's what the conventional plastic is lacking. It has a linear model. So
yes,
after we produce it, it just goes somewhere. And
yes.
I have a follow-up question. Do these conventional plastics decompose?
Okay, good
Aba-
question. Good
Mm.
question. Really good question. Because again, this is another source of confusion. Uh, the thing about degradation or decomposition is the major thing, especially in terms of commercial scale, no, in meaning higher amounts.
Yes.
The major factor here is time. All
Mm.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
given enough time, that's why if we always say that conventional plastics take what, 500 years, 1,000 years. So given 500 years, given 1,000 years, it will also degrade. Okay.
Yeah.
The important assumption here is the material, the bioplastic, degrades within a reasonable time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so meaning a time that allows it not to accumulate. All right.
Yes.
Yun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important. And before, it is already a good opportunity for me. Before
Yes.
before you ask your new question, I want to share my next slide muna.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Because that's really good. Okay.
Yes. So my next slide actually deals with standards. Okay? Because
Yes.
you might be asking, so Jeremy, what is a reasonable time? Diba? Because
Yes. Mm-hmm.
okay. The thing is, even in Europe, it's they stated a definite time period, but it's mostly a range, I would say.
Yes.
Okay? Which
Okay.
we cannot fault anyone, because it depends on the material, it depends on the conditions. So the more popular standard for packaging, for bioplastic packaging that are supposed to be certified as biodegradable is at least, so this one, the EN 1342. So at least 90% disintegration within 3 months. So disintegration simply means it will fragment.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Yun lang. It's not necessarily biodegrading and becoming nutrients, like I mentioned a while ago. It will just
Mm-hmm.
fragment. So within 3 months, it should fragment. And normally the measurement here is weight. I don't know how exactly, because it's so hard to weigh fragments.
Yes.
But the normally the measurement here is the weight, the dry weight.
Mm-hmm.
So along with the 90% disintegration, by 6 months, so after another 3 months, it should have at least 90% biodegradation.
Oh.
So the two terms are different. Disintegration and biodegradation are different.
Yes.
And the biodegradation one is measured normally, as far as I know, the last time, like 2000, I think 12 that I read it. Uh, biodegradation was measured by CO2 output. Okay,
Oh,
why?
okay.
Why? Because when organisms eat polymers,
Mm-hmm.
their waste product, kumaga their feces, okay, their waste product
Okay.
is normally CO2, carbon dioxide, and
Mm-hmm.
water.
Yes.
Okay, so they normally measure biodegradation by measuring carbon dioxide. So meaning there is microorganisms there, it eat the material and it excreted waste material, which is CO2. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Mm-hmm.
So another one is, it's actually really similar. It's ASTM. So I think that's the American Standard Testing something. So this one is European, this is American, but they're practically the same. It's very very similar, no. So no more than 10%. So it's the inverse of this one. It's 90%.
Yes.
No more 10% of the original dry weight. So meaning it disintegrated. It lost its weight after 84 days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, organic carbon must be converted to carbon dioxide within
180
180
days.
days. So similar to this one, so the 90% within 6 months. Very similar. And
Mm-hmm.
in addition, the material should contain less than 50% of allowable heavy metals.
Yes.
So this is very important because if you go back to the diagram that you showed me, it should be, the bioplastic should be eventually nutrients to the soil,
Mm-hmm.
nutrients for the plant. And if there are heavy metals, then it's not nutritious. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that those are the standards, for degradation. I hope that made sense.
It really does because seeing that it's quick. Okay. That's what we are focusing right now. What's the significance of bioplastic? It's quick. Okay, it's quick to degrade. Okay, and we don't have to push people to know that it is biodegrading. No, I mean it degrades once and for all. Not like that. We are at least making them aware that bioplastics may reduce, at least reduce,
Mm.
'di ba? The mass, the weight of
Yeah.
what we are consuming right now. Okay. So, Jeremy, we have a follow-up question. So this
Yes.
is from Joanne Fayen.
Mhm.
Okay. She asks, why do we call them conventional plastics? Those supot and other. Yeah.
Conventional because we've been just using them for so long already. No?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that we're used to. It's the
Yes.
convention. No?
Mm-hmm.
It's the status quo. That's the only reason.
Yeah, it's the image of what we call plastic
Yes.
nowadays. Yes. Okay. So we are really encouraged by this topic about bioplastics, and we want to know more. So we would like to ask the second question. What are the examples of bioplastics? Maybe we are pertaining to the material.
Mm.
Okay. What
Mm.
are the brands nowadays?
Mm. Mhm.
Mm,
Okay. Okay. In terms of brands, I hope I remember some. But in terms of materials, let me again share.
yes.
And here. Okay. So I tried actually my best to categorize it, and this is my own categorization. It's not
Yes.
really like black and white na ganito, no?
Mm-hmm.
But for people to understand it better. Uh, if you're asking what materials can be used as bioplastic, there's endless materials. Na. As long as it's derived from carbon, because carbon can be fashioned, it can be formed into a
Yes.
long chain. No? That's why
Mm-hmm.
we always mention kanina na poly. Poly means many. So
Yes.
as long as there's a structure that can be formed into a long chain, which is carbon, it can be theoretically turned into a bioplastic. So what has carbon? No, sugars has carbon.
Yes.
Sugars, oils, no, lipids, proteins even has carbon. That's why I also added here protein based. So this is not an exhaustive list, okay? Definitely. So as you can probably just rely on your imagination, no? what
Mm-hmm.
material can be used. But as far as categories, it can be like starch or pectin based. So this is normally your fruits, your
Yes.
small plants, small shrubs, etc. So, commodities that we normally use for cooking and eating,
Yes.
like rice, corn, wheat, even citrus peels, even just the peels. Okay, it's not necessarily
Yes.
the plant. And then there's cellulose and lignin base. We already mentioned cellulose many times earlier. So paper, by just strict definition, is a bioplastic, just by the
Yes.
strict definition. And
Mm-hmm.
then bamboo, hemp, fruit pits or the seeds, the hard portions even can be fashioned into bioplastic materials. Sawdust, even, if you collect enough of it, you can eventually fashion it into a plastic material.
Yes.
Coffee grinds, even. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just depends on your imagination.
Yes. And
Carrageenan, yes.
yes. And what's interesting about this is that these materials are very cheap, right? We can actually find it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, di ba?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good point actually, because uh, many of these I'm going to chitin based already, like the insect shells
Yes.
and shellfish shells. It doesn't mean that you have to catch
Yes.
like live insects or live
Mm-hmm.
crabs, etc. You can just use the discarded ones. No, like when you're done
Yes.
eating your shrimp or oysters,
Oh,
you can
okay.
the waste shell. No, you don't have to catch live ones. Diba?
Mm-hmm.
You can use
Uh-oh.
the waste materials, and for the protein based, for the feathers, like for example feathers, you don't need to catch and kill a bird
Yeah.
or a chicken.
Mm-mm.
No,
Mm-mm.
like the waste when it it goes to the butcher, for example, you
Yeah.
can just
Mm-mm.
collect the waste feathers or the waste wool.
Mm-hmm.
From, we don't have sheep, but
Yes.
hair, even milk. Okay, the milk proteins.
Oh, milk.
You don't need to buy new milk.
Yeah.
Okay, if you've ever made yogurt at home,
Yes.
or even cheese. Now there is a waste protein there that we don't normally use,
Oh,
and
okay.
you can fashion it as it's a
Mm-mm.
matter now of scale, but by in theory you can use it. And then gelatin, which is
Yes.
from collagen, di ba? From animals. Waste again, waste gelatin.
Yes.
You don't need to catch live animals. Yeah. So those are the materials you can use. I can probably just show a few examples, just
Yes.
pictures, because there are too many. Uh, yeah, just a few examples. The first picture here, I think, comes from pumpkin waste. That's why it's a little bit orangey, brownish. Pumpkin waste. It's not really that, you know, pretty exactly, but they do their function. And by the way, this is just a prototype, so it's not really the final commercial product. You can still make it better now. The
Yes.
second one is from the shrimp shells. The middle upper middle photo.
Oh, wow.
You can make blister packs, pouches, and it looks like what's that, bubble wrap even. I don't know
Yes.
if that's the
Mm-hmm.
purpose, but it looks like
Mm-hmm.
bubble wrap. The third one, another cup, another prototype, is from hair, animal hair. So you can even use it. The fourth one
Okay.
is milk, from milk, and it was used as a milk cup.
Yes.
The fifth one is from fish scales and
Ah,
innards.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Innards, yung mga laman loob,
Yes.
the internal organs of the fish. So those are some examples. And let me go further a little bit just to pique everyone's imagination.
Yes.
I call it quote unquote next gen, because they are
Yes.
microorganisms. Siyempre, medyo biased ako, no? I'm biased on
Uh-huh.
this. The left one is from mushrooms. So mushrooms, before they actually form the mushroom body that we know and love,
Yes. It
they
looks like
they
a styrofoam, huh?
it does, and it
Yes.
functions as one.
Oh.
Right? So yeah, so mushrooms can be used to fashion, like sabi mo nga, styrofoam like
Mm-hmm.
material, and it's actually
Yes.
used, in Europe. And then the left one, the right one is what I'm trying to do as well. It's from bacteria. The white uh, granules that you see inside of the picture there here,
Yes.
yeah, the
Yes.
white ones here, it's also a polymer, which will
Okay.
eventually you can do like this, or you can do like
Wow.
this. That's the PHA, the
Okay.
one that we saw earlier.
Ah,
That's
okay.
PHA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can call it next gen. It's not really that new, but it's I think has a
Yeah.
lot of potential. Personally,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of
It
potential.
has a safe spot in the future, I think.
Yes, yes.
Uh, I just want to ask, are those sterile? Are those sterilized, clean?
They're not sterile per se because it's
Mm-hmm.
outside, it's exposed.
Yes.
But those are
Mm-hmm.
clean. Yes, those are
Yes,
clean.
okay. Uh, especially those that are being used as utensils, as
Yes,
glass.
yes.
Because
Those
I
are
saw
clean.
the I saw the cup with made of hair.
Yeah, of course. Again,
Okay.
that's a prototype.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
for also to for the information also of everyone. Like for this one, for example, the PHA,
Mm-hmm.
it's so clean that you can actually use this as sutures.
Yes.
Okay, so thread for surgery. So you can actually put it
Oh, okay.
literally inside your body,
Mm-hmm.
your bloodstream, and it will degrade there. Okay, so it's really safe. Okay,
It can really compete. I must say, it can really compete,
let's
diba?
see.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Let's
We're
see.
going
Okay,
there. We're
yeah.
going there. Okay, so this third question, so I think you have answered this already. So, what materials can we use to create bioplastics? So, I think this is more on the source.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yes, go
source.
ahead.
I'll just go through it very quickly because I mentioned already the specific examples. Sources
Yes.
mostly, if you've seen statistics, especially in Europe, because it's hard to find statistics in Asia. If you see statistics,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Europe, more than half obviously comes from plants, from starchy plants specifically, and then the second component comes from PLA, which is also from plants. So you can safely say that
Yes.
most of the bioplastic sources is from plants. Okay. Right now,
Yes.
we will see
Mm-hmm.
in the future.
Plants and microorganisms like that.
Mm, mm.
Okay. And then I just want to ask, um, where did Europe? Okay, I've been hearing so much about Europe lately. Na
Mm.
they have these standards. Why does Europe eventually go really high up when it comes to bioplastics?
Okay, that's actually, I don't know if that's a fact per se, but
Mm-hmm.
just I guess in my opinion, in general,
Mm-mm.
Europe has this culture of looking out for the environment. I guess
Yes,
let's
and
keep
it's
it.
a developed
Yes,
country. Those we there are a lot of countries that are developed there.
yes,
Mm-mm.
yes. And to your point, since it's developed, they know that they have this responsibility to lead
Yes.
practically the
Mm-mm.
world, diba? Because
Mm-mm.
everyone is
Mm-mm.
looking at them. Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's really confusing because we are the developing countries, yet we are the ones who really need to, step up our games when it comes to
Exactly.
environmental actions,
Yeah,
diba? And
yeah,
what we can see in Europe is that we need to not actually be like them, but at least stand up with their
mm,
standards.
mm,
It's just confusing
hopefully.
because the Philippines, di ba? The
Yeah,
Philippines is a developing country, and we need to focus on this. We've been hearing a lot of a lot of issues, di ba? When it comes to environmental
yeah,
news.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
those are a lot of yes. Go.
that's actually really a good point because
Mm-hmm.
the examples I mentioned, probably except wool, everything we have here,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
abundance,
actually. Mm-hmm.
in abundance, diba? So
Diba?
yeah,
So, the viewers are also curious since we have always, found something that is good about this bioplastics. They also wanted to know what are the downsides of
okay.
using bioplastics.
Okay, downsides. This can be a whole new different discussion on its own, but let's try. Okay. Um, I'll share again
Mm-hmm.
here. Okay. So I've tried again my best
Wow.
to
Mm-hmm.
highlight different categories, to compare them, and different materials. Okay. So columns, what, from textile bags to the last one is all natural, diba? Textile nga is from cotton,
Yes.
let's
Mm-hmm.
say hemp, from plants din. And paper is from obviously, and glass is from minerals, na from silica. So let's try. This is really a dirty, a messy, a messy.
Okay, it's
This
okay.
can be a messy discussion, yeah,
Yeah. Mm-mm.
because it really depends on where you are in the chain. No, are you
Yes.
the producer? Are you the distributor? Are you the
Yes.
end user? Are you the
Yes.
secondary user? But
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It
Mm-mm.
also depends on how long or what do you need the material for, diba?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it really depends. But let's try. Let's try. Okay. For performance, uh, I initially only considered traditional plastics, traditional synthetics as the one with the perfect score because
Yes.
that's why actually they're the preferred one. But if you look solely to textile bags and to glass, if you just consider that, if you ask yourself, do they do their purpose well or can they actually serve me the way I want them to serve me? Then the answer is
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
the differentiating factor is they're not really versatile or flexible in terms of
Yes.
performance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when
Mm-hmm.
you use glass as a container, then it can only be a container.
Oh.
You can't use it. You have to find another material if you want something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Unlike plastics, textile
Mm-hmm.
bag is the same, right? And the thing about textile bags is if it gets wet, I'm assuming this is pure textile. There's no lining,
Yes.
there's no
Of course.
additive. So textile, cotton or hemp, if it gets wet, there's a possibility that it will get molds, etc.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of problem there. But in general, if you just ask yourself, do they do what I want them to do, or
Yeah.
can they do it? Then the answer
Mm-hmm.
is yes. So I put
Mm-hmm.
three star or three plus. For the bioplastics, they can actually compete in a sense, but
Yes.
I don't want to give people the notion that they're equal. That's why I put there two plus.
Yes.
It's just to show that they are there, they are similar, very similar,
Mm-hmm.
but they can be better.
Yes.
All right, they can be better.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
But clearly, paper for some of us, the it just doesn't do its job really well,
Mm-hmm.
at least for the most part, unless you're just maybe I don't know packing really small amounts of something.
Mm-hmm.
Diba? But aside from that, it's very fragile and it's too high maintenance, I guess. So it scores low in
Yes.
performance.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is durability. Again, traditional plastic scores perfect on it kasi because that's why we want it. That's why we use it
Yes.
for the
Of
last how many
course.
years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I put again glass here as perfect because it's assuming that we're not clumsy and not break the glass. It will last indefinitely. All right. If you just leave it there, it will be glass. It's very inert. It will not get molds. It will not, if you just take care of it like
Yes.
uh, as not be clumsy, not drop it, not
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
will it will it will stand the test of time. Unlike again textile bags, which can have molds eventually, which can catch insects
Yes.
in some types like husks. Diba?
Mm-hmm.
As the same with bioplastics, right? So some bioplastics, all I think all bioplastics do not last as long as traditional, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is, we don't need it to. No, we don't need it
Yeah.
to last.
That's it. That's
We
its
don't-
point. That's the
yeah,
point of bioplastics, di
yeah.
ba?
We don't need it to last now. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the caveat is it's not perfect because the measurement is durability. Next one is health safety.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a intricate topic because it depends on what aspect of the health. Okay,
Yes.
so I put textile bags, paper, and glass as perfect because they do not really affect you as is. All right. They don't have toxins. Again, assuming you don't add anything to it, it's just pure paper, pure glass, pure textile. But some people you may ask, paper is toxic, and
Mm-hmm.
they may argue that let's say and end of life it will
Mm-hmm.
get stuck in a flood wherever. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's true also, but that's a different discussion. Right?
So, health
Uh,
safety of the, let's say, not just the humans, di ba?
yeah, yeah.
Aquatic
Yeah,
resources.
exactly. Yeah. So some may argue kasi na if paper is not disposed properly, it will end up in the ocean.
Yeah.
not necessarily not necessarily safe. But
Mm-mm.
just I'm talking about just the material itself,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
They're perfectly safe. All of them, all of the natural stuff there are perfectly safe, assuming you don't add anything to it. Don't
Yes.
add any metals, don't add
Yes.
any
Mm-hmm.
linings or dangerous plasticizers, all right?
Of course.
Which is obviously inverse for traditional plastics, especially for PVC. That's very toxic,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you heat it up or something like that. The next one is use of resources. Again, a very long discussion actually, because resources is very vague. It's very broad. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it has something to do with production and even manufacturing, distribution, shipping, etc., etc. But I'll focus mainly on land and energy, mainly. And all of them do not get a perfect score because all of them uses not the same, but they are for the most part energy intensive. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
just compare first glass, for example, glass and traditional plastic. Glass initially is energy intensive. You need a lot of heat.
Yes.
But if you recycle glass, okay, because glass can be recycled endlessly,
Yes.
infinitely. If you recycle glass, then you will use less heat. Okay? It will save
Okay.
energy after a
Mm-hmm.
few recycles. But initially, you will use a lot of heat because itutunawin mo pa because you need to melt it. In the same way, for bioplastics, you need a lot of water. Okay, for it depends. Watering the plants or
Yeah.
in the
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing, you need a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
But also for traditional plastics, you need a lot of heat also for breaking up the oil, the gas. So it's not they're not equal, but all of them uses a lot of energy. Okay,
Yes.
for the
Mm-hmm.
most part.
Okay.
Paper is least it scores the least kasi it's because they use more land because they use more trees
True.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's or they use both water and some heat in some applications, but mostly water and a large portion of land. That's why they score the lowest.
Yes.
And then end of life, uh, the synthetics score the lowest because, as you said earlier, it's linear. When you dispose it,
Yes.
it's like you're in a
In the landfill.
you're catch in a bind, di ba? Kasi doon na lang
Yeah.
talaga sa landfill.
Mm-mm. Mm. Mm-mm.
Unlike the natural ones, they scored two because it really depends
Mm.
on how the user dispose of them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like what you said nga with paper, di ba? It might disrupt
Yes.
aquatic animals, etc., etc. A glass is perfect simply because, as I said, it can be recycled infinitely. But
Yes.
again, this presupposes that you actually put them in a proper
Yes.
glass
That's a note,
recycling.
huh? Okay.
That's really
Yes.
important. That's really an
That's from a perspective of a disciplined person,
yes,
okay? Okay.
yes. I hope so. That everyone emphasizes it. And for the bioplastics, you asked me why is it not perfect? I thought they were like in, they were in
Yeah.
this
Mm-mm.
perfect loop. Kanina, the image earlier.
Mm-mm.
The
Mm-mm.
thing is, the thing
Mm-mm.
is, especially adding the standards that I mentioned a while ago, the European and the American standards, those are actually for industrial composting. I mentioned it a while ago, di ba?
Oh,
It's
okay.
for industrial,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't score a perfect score because the Philippines in particular don't have enough industrial composters, or even if we do, I don't think
Yeah. Mm-mm.
even familiar of it, right? And bioplastic,
Mm-hmm.
it's the bioplastic usage is so low that they don't care. They don't even care to sort it out sometimes.
Yeah.
Diba? So that's why it doesn't score a perfect score. Ideally,
Mm-hmm.
it is, but reality, yeah, there's still a lot to do. No? There's still a lot of improvement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is cost. Okay, so just by default, synthetics is the cheapest because of oil nga.
Yes.
Oil is cheap and it's the
Mm-hmm.
byproduct of oil, so it's more cheaper. I scored paper a perfect score, but it's not actually as cheap as oil. I mean traditional plastics. It's probably
Yes.
around
Mm-hmm.
double the cost. But in terms of the other ones, the glass especially and the textile, I scored them perfect because they're just if oil-based plastics cost like 2 cents, paper that cost
Mm-hmm.
3 cents, 3 cents or 4 cents. So this is very close. So for bioplastics, they cost like at probably 3 to 10 times more. So
Yes.
it's more expensive, but uh,
Yes.
we're getting there. Now we're getting there.
Yes.
It has
But
a
it
lot.
has its purposes.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it has a lot something to do with development, diba? So
Yes.
if we
Mm-mm.
develop the material further, it will become cheaper. No? Especially
Yes. Mm-hmm.
if we demand it more, if it's in scale, if we produce it in large scale, it will be cheaper. But textiles and
Yes.
glass, I don't think it can really compete cost wise, no, with plastics and even paper. So that's
Yeah.
what.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
we can argue it any way you want, but to
Yes.
summarize,
And just to disclaim that this
yeah,
is a perspective from, someone who can throw his waste properly, okay?
yes,
That
yes,
that's our disclaimer,
exactly,
okay? Baka
exactly.
baka they might say something na they might comment, okay? They
Yeah,
might say something na I don't throw paper like this. Of
yeah,
course, it's highly durable for me. Paper is highly
yeah.
durable for that's for you, okay?
Mm,
We all have different uses for it,
mm,
okay? And since we are talking about cost, okay, and
mm,
we are getting there that bioplastics
mm,
do really compete, okay? It's a matter of who wins, economic or environmental.
mm,
Those are
mm,
the two things that you need to argue,
mm,
okay? Which should come first? Should economic come first, environmental first, or should be a balance of both? So our sixth question,
mm,
no, is it our fifth? Yes,
mm,
our fifth question talks about the effectivity to
mm.
replace
Yeah.
non-biodegradable plastic.
Mm, okay.
Uh, is it really effective enough?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let me stay here in this in this table just
Okay.
to
Yes,
have a
yes.
visual. Is it effective enough? It depends. Well, what do you need it for?
Yes.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
question. That's the question.
Let's say is it effective to become a single-use plastic
Okay. Good.
for the market?
Yeah.
Mm.
So it really depends on what you need it for. Like let me summarize then. I hope this answers the question. But let me summarize yung
Mm-hmm.
the pros and cons now. If you
Yes.
notice, traditional plastics, where do they score high? Performance, durability,
Durability and
and
cost.
cost. No?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, that's what distributors, that's what sellers care most about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Performance, durability, sadly, and
Yeah.
cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the other side, bioplastics they don't even have a 1 star. They don't even have a very low score.
Yeah.
So they're
Mm-hmm.
very competitive, no?
Mm-hmm.
But they only are very superb, I would say, dun sa health, di ba? Dun
Yes.
sa health and
Yes.
safety.
Yes.
So the question should be, do we value health and safety that much? Do
Yes.
businesses, do big companies, do end users even,
Yeah.
do
Mm-hmm.
we value it that much, health and safety, that we would a little bit compromise, just a little bit, performance, durability, and of course, our wallets, di ba? Do we value health, safety, or the environment even that much, di ba? If for context, before you answer, for context, look at glass.
Mm-hmm.
It scores the best in 4 sections, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
high performing, very durable, they're very safe, except when you break them, but they're very safe
Mm-hmm.
if you're careful. And end of life, you can recycle them
Mm-hmm.
endlessly, practically.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the last one,
The cost.
the cost, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
They only fail in one,
Yes.
but now they're replaced, di ba? Before
Yes.
we were drinking soft
Mm-hmm.
drinks, soft
Yes.
drinks widespread in glass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ngayon, it's almost always plastic. I mean,
Yes.
traditional plastic, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a question of what do we value most? No,
Yes.
you ask the businesses, what do you
Mm-hmm.
value most? You ask
Mm-hmm.
individuals, you ask moms, you ask, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
Sari-sari
Yes.
stores. What do
Mm-hmm.
you value most?
Mm-hmm.
That's the real question.
So it really depends on the person's
Yeah,
use. Okay,
yeah,
what do they really think about?
yeah.
Okay, of course the businesses. Okay, that's obvious. They think about the profit.
Mhm,
Okay, so they'll turn into this material there that is that is cheap. Okay, it could be the conventional plastic or uh, the paper.
Mm,
Okay, they could that's their answer. Okay, but
mm,
for us consumers, okay, and especially environmentalists, we have a
mm.
different side. Okay,
Exactly.
not to be offensive to those who have we have different opinions. Okay,
Exactly.
and that's what's interesting about here. We need to unite something. Okay,
Yeah.
we are not promoting, we are not what's the correct word, we are not here to promote or at least give the best shot for uh bioplastic.
Bioplastics. Yeah.
Okay, that's not our purpose here. What we are answering here is the competition
Yeah.
that it might one day at least, okay,
Yeah.
may not replace but at least help reduce.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, and since we were talking about cost, from we can go to many perspectives.
Mhm.
We can also ask, are bioplastics cost effective? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Short answer, not yet.
Yes.
All right.
Not
Short
yet.
answer.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
answer.
But the long answer, probably it takes into account what I've been saying all along. No? The first one is, but the bioplastic development and usage has not been that long.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Compared to yung my story a while ago from the 1800s, even from the World War, it's tested na already by the World War that there have been a long time to research and develop traditional plastics. All right,
Yes.
more than at least 100 years, di ba? More than 100 years. So in that sense, bioplastic is already in a disadvantage, di ba, in terms of development. But the good thing is, research and development now, because of the internet, because of the technology, is faster.
Mm-hmm.
Mas
Yes.
mabilis. Like for example, the PLA, no, the PHA. I'm more knowledgeable about PHA.
Yes.
PHA
Okay.
was cost 10 times more than traditional plastics.
Mm-hmm.
In 2000, not exactly, but around 2008. Okay, it cost 10 times more.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years later, or so, 5 years or so, probably around 2014, it now costs 3 to 5 times. So just in a few years, we've reduced the cost by half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
through research and
Yeah.
development. So what I'm saying here is, I guess what you've been saying also, no, is just to give it time, give it a chance, practically,
Yes.
for it to develop, support it, and eventually, probably will do something as a collective, no, not only
Mm-hmm.
for us sustainable advocates, but for everyone, no, to support it in scale, meaning in high amount, in huge amounts, so that we
Mm-hmm.
can produce it in more amounts and in less cost. So
Yes.
that's practically your long, winding answer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but for now, not yet. Sadly, no, not
Yes.
yet.
Mm-hmm. And we are calling out the government because this is a high time for us to really choose our priority. Money is not a problem, I think. Okay, for the developed countries, that is not a problem at all.
No.
That's why they have ventured this type of milestone, which is the bioplastics, because
Mm,
'di ba, we can always compare the developed and the developing countries. Okay,
mm,
you can always say to yourself na the developing countries do not have that, are not really privileged enough
mm,
to
mm,
start uh pursuing bioplastics
mm,
because
mm,
it's not really expensive, but
mm,
comparing to conventional plastics, it
mm,
has more, what do you call this, it needs to, you need to spend more on it. Okay, that's the key term for that.
mm, mm,
Okay, and that's what we are being compared to the developed countries. At this point, we want to know from the developed countries, uh, can you share about the thriving bioplastics
mm,
industry in the developed countries? So this is about what is happening right now,
mm,
what are the results. We want to know some results of what
mm.
is happening when people are using bioplastics.
Okay. Uh, okay. How do I approach this? Okay. So you mentioned a while ago, no, I've studied in Germany, so I've been
Mm-hmm.
home since last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
my data is probably at least until last year only. But let me share again just a few examples. So what I'm going to share is mostly about Europe because that's what I am exposed to.
Yes.
But rest assured, it's also available in obviously the US and North America and even in South
Mm-hmm.
no, America
Mm-hmm.
and in Asia. So let me share just again a few examples of even startups, no, not really just companies like this one. Oops. Uh, so I just included I even included Indonesia there. I just included one example from different countries, mostly in Europe, but it doesn't mean that there's only one of it in the whole
Yes.
country. All right,
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
France, in Germany, in Finland, there are many bioplastic startups. I just shared a few because again, the what's this opportunities are just endless. No, it just relies on your imagination. So in Denmark, they use vegetable waste. So it's not even like planting new plants. There's
Mm-hmm.
household vegetable waste. The company is Celigy. In Finland, they use just simple wood shavings. Yeah, we have a lot of these, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
In
Mm-hmm.
Estonia, they have this plant-based. It's propriety material. So I just know it's plant-based, but I don't know exactly what plant. And they use it for right now. It's for honey. So
Yes.
it's like a biodegradable sachet practically.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put honey in the sachet or sugar, whatever, you just put the sachet in your coffee, for example, in your juice. You don't need to cut anything. So the sugar or the honey is included with the plant-based material. So you just mix it there. There's
Yes.
no sachet practically.
Okay.
And then in France, there's a company called Lactips which uses milk proteins as packaging. So this is really
Okay.
interesting,
Wow.
really really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In Germany, Coffee Form uses coffee grounds, yung
Coffee grounds.
the spent ones, not the new ones. All right. So when you brew coffee, diba, normally you
Mm-hmm.
dispose the grounds.
Mm-hmm.
So Coffee Form transforms it into cutlery for their coffee shops actually. So it's very very
Wow.
circular. It's very very circular. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the UK is a company called Marinatex, which is similar to which is actually the one I showed you earlier, the one from
Yes.
fish scales, the girl who's
Yes.
holding up a plastic. So
Oh,
imagine, no, that
okay.
that plastic film is from fish scales, no,
Mm-hmm.
and fish innards. And then I just included here Indonesia just to show you that it's not just because they're developed, no, that
Yes. It's
they
an
have this.
emerging country.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean the technology, the opportunities are not only for developed countries.
Yes, of course.
No? So even places like us no, in Indonesia, which uses algae, they have a lot of algae obviously because they're
Of
an
course.
archipelago like us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No? So just to give an idea lang for probable entrepreneurs
Of
there then.
course, huh?
Yeah.
There's too many sources here in the Philippines, okay? If they can really hear this out, okay? This is a
Yeah.
good point for them.
Yeah. So yeah, that those are just some examples. There are more than 100. No,
Mm-hmm.
I just share a couple. And this is one that I want to share also. The name is PH bottle. It's a pun because PHB is the material
Ah,
and
okay. Wow.
bottle is the final material.
Mm-hmm.
PHB is a form of PHA and the one
Mm-hmm.
that you can find inside the organism. So I shared this. Why did I share this? It's because this is a government initiative.
Yes.
All right. So hindi lang to startup. It's not from a startup. It's actually a government funded government initiative
Mm-hmm.
wherein there's not only one, not only two companies involved. There are 12 institutes involved no? Across Europe. So what's my point? My point is it's a culture. It's not only just one initiative from this small town or this
Mm-hmm.
one small lab or this one small village. In Europe, it's more of a culture for them to find solutions, no, innovative solutions like this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, uh, gathering institutions, companies, and then funding it, and then eventually making something out of it. Interesting
Yes.
because this is a project wherein they were trying to make bottles for the juice industry, for the fruit juice industry, using discarded fruit waste.
Yes.
All right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very circular again, right? So discarded fruit waste, eventually they turn it into a bottle used to
Mm-hmm.
hold the product, the fruit juice. Yeah. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very very circular, and I hope someday,
Yeah.
someday we'll have some
Recent,
government.
recently, we were talking about circular economy here
Yeah.
in AtoAni.
Yeah.
We have, I think, panelists who have talked about circular economy, and they have said that it is, there's a good chance that someday the Philippines can
Yeah.
transition to it, diba?
Hopefully, really, hopefully.
Hopefully,
I'm really looking forward to it.
yes.
It just takes probably not even a national initiative. No? It just takes someone or a couple of people in power and
Yeah, of
people
course.
like you guys, like us, no,
Mm-hmm.
who's very passionate about
Yes.
things like this. Yes.
It may come from any individual.
Mm.
Okay. So, since we are done with the developed countries, I want to ask you from your own opinion, can bioplastics industry thrive here in the Philippines?
Yeah. Another short answer, yes. Another short answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not simple. No? It's nothing is simple, especially in a
Yes.
problem like pollution, no, plastic
Mm-hmm.
pollution, plastic waste. uh I mentioned several times, no, culture. The first thing that has to change is the system, that's the
System
culture,
first, of course.
our behavior, right? I've been mentioning when I was presenting the table that the assumption is you dispose of it properly, you use it properly,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a culture,
Mm-hmm.
uh and it's not only for people like you, people like me. It has to be the community, everyone. No? The
Yeah.
next one is, so when you change the behavior and the culture, you have to change the systems, like the actual
Yes.
systems. What do you mean by that? It's you're familiar with the tingi culture, the tingi
Mm-hmm.
system, di ba?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have to change the system itself. No, we have to eliminate it if we're really serious. No, we have to eliminate sachets slowly but surely, probably, uh, or plastic bottles, and revert back to, let's say, glass milk bottles. I don't know. It depends on who gives a solution. But the point is the system itself, the tangible system has
Yes.
to change along with
Mm-hmm.
our behavior. No, the intangible system. No? Those two has to change first before bioplastics can thrive. Because I don't know if you'll ask this, because there are initiatives now, right now, no, in the Philippines, in terms of bioplastics. AtoAni is one, morph is
Yes,
one,
of
but
course.
we're still in under development. But there's
Mm-hmm.
Econest is very popular in media. I've been seeing it. Econest and Greener Jeans. I've seen them in
Yeah.
social
Mm-mm.
media also. And then there's Piñapel. I don't know who carries Piñapel, but I know they won an award. Piñapel is a paper packaging from pineapple. Piñapel. So
Oh, okay.
there are already a lot of initiatives right now,
Pineapple.
in the country, but we have to help them.
Mm-hmm.
No? We have to change the
Yes.
our
Mm-hmm.
behavior, the intangible one,
Yes.
and change
Yes.
the system itself, the tangible system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me, I have always been, so the answer to this question is yes, okay?
Yes,
Me, I
short
have
answer.
always grown up believing that plastics shouldn't be banned, okay? That's what I believed in. It shouldn't be banned. It's about the people who use this. But right now, we don't actually can think of other ways of reducing it,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
uh, this is one possible good solution, and I hope that one day, ako I have, I, I think there's a chance. Okay, why? Because the government, okay, it's funny because the government, if we should be facing COVID-19, okay,
Mm.
we should be facing a lot of medical solutions, but what I'm surprised is that the government, okay, is constructing white sand on Manila Bay, okay? And I thought, okay, maybe they're focusing now on environmental,
Mm.
okay?
Mm.
When they should have been focusing on medical and health, Okay, sabi ko, okay, I think this is a good chance, okay, for businesses to at least go out from their comfort zones.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
the Philippines has always opened the door for this
Mm.
ventures, and one day, I think bioplastics can at least you know be on the market. Maybe not totally eradicate the complete conventional plastics,
Mm.
but it will be there one day.
Yep,
Mm.
yep. And
Okay.
may I add
So,
in
okay,
just
go. Okay.
probably just to tie everything up now,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been moving back and forth with the bioplastic itself. Let me just emphasize then, coming from someone who advocates bioplastic,
Yes. Okay.
let me emphasize that it's not the solution. Okay,
Yes.
it's just one of the solutions. Okay,
Yes. Of course.
so we shouldn't. I know you know this, Joanny knows this, but I hope people should realize that there's no one, magic
Mm-hmm.
bullet, kumbaga. There's no
Mm-hmm.
one
Mm-hmm.
magic bullet. Bioplastics alone cannot solve it. All right.
Yes. Of course.
So, it's going to be several different initiatives and innovations, products.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not only just bioplastics. I hope that's very clear with everyone.
Yes. And that's one common myth. They always thought that bioplastics is the one. Okay.
Exactly. And
It's.
when that's why when
Mm-hmm.
bioplastics fail, when paper failed,
Yeah. Mm-mm.
naging negative na yung notion, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Kasi
yeah,
they're expecting something from
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone should realize it's not the magic. It's not the magic. There is no magic bullet, right?
Yes. Actually, correct. That is so true because people nowadays are expecting at least a big boom, okay?
Yeah.
A big boom of what will solve all these problems. There's no such thing as that big boom, okay? Or the magic bullet. Okay, so right now we will be asking some questions coming from our audience. So there are a
Okay.
lot of interesting questions.
Okay.
Uh, we have one from Janice Tunakaw.
Mhm.
Okay. Janice would like to ask, how can we say that a particular material is the best raw material to use for creating a bioplastic? She is actually asking what kind of material would be best?
Best raw material, no? The question.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mentioned this. I mentioned this earlier. The
Yes,
question you should ask. There's no best, right? The
yes, of
question you
course.
should ask is, what do you need it for,
Yes,
right?
yes.
What's the
Mm-hmm.
purpose? What's the purpose? Because for the most part, like we agreed earlier, bioplastics, for example, they're not durable, or not as durable
Yes,
as synthetics. But most of their applications, we don't need them to be durable.
yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you just ask the question first. What do I need this for? What do I need the plastic for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So and then after answering that, you can try to limit your choices. Like for example, if you need a harder material, then you can skip the let's say you can skip milk because
Yes,
it's
of
liquid, diba?
course.
So things like that. Now you can narrow down your choices when you've answered the purpose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Janice, I hope that Jeremy has answered your question. I think Janice is some type of, she is having an idea.
Yeah.
I think she's having an idea, di ba? That's good, Janice, to Nakao. Okay. So it's almost time already. I have learned a lot, Sir Jeremy. Thank you so much. Okay. I know that there are still a lot of questions from our audience that we were not able to ask. And I'm deeply sorry about that. But don't worry. Okay. We will try our best to answer them in the comment section. Di ba, Sir Jeremy, you'll be available? Okay. Our panelist is active on Facebook and he would be glad to answer those queries we haven't touched on because a lot of viewers are really curious about bioplastics. Mm? Okay. So before we say goodbye, Sir Jeremy, do you have any last points that you want our audience to know? And maybe you can also share how our audience can possibly connect with you and follow you on your respective advocacies.
Yeah. So what's showing right now is our social media page. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a founder of Morph BioPlastic. Morph BioPlastic is a PHA material actually. That's why it's PH. Like,
PH, yes.
but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, it's for the Philippines, so that's why it's PH.
Yeah.
Uh, so right now it's in under development. So I hope it will work out in the future.
Yes.
But if you're curious, siguro, one thing I can really just say in general for anyone that could listen to it is just keep your eyes and mind open
Yes.
on
Mm-hmm.
different types of solutions, answers. No, again, there's no one answer. There's no
Mm-hmm.
in very complicated problems like this, pollution, poverty, yeah,
Yes.
there's no
Mm-hmm.
one answer. Okay, so I just implore everyone to just keep their eyes open for innovations,
Mm-hmm.
possibilities, and
Yes.
keep their minds open in understanding what it means, no? What it really means. No? Hindi yung
Mm-hmm.
lumalabas lang sa media or whatever. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just be critical if lumabas sa media. Yeah. So if you're interested in bioplastics or in PHA in particular, you can just visit at morph.plastic Instagram. It's very new. We're just starting to
Yes.
have an online presence, but right now we don't
Mm-hmm.
have an actual uh, tangible product right now, so it's still under development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I commend the name of your brand. Ah. It's actually good. Okay, 'di ba? We were thinking of the name for this webinar, but this brand name is actually cool because you can talk about your PHB. Okay,
Yeah.
you can talk about morph as in like
Changing, na?
oh, yeah, yeah, 'di ba? And we can talk about the Philippines, PH. It's
Yeah.
actually catchy. Okay, I commend that brand. Okay,
Thank you,
I
thank you.
like that. Okay, Morph Bioplastic. So please visit at Morph Bioplastic on Instagram for Sir Jeremy. Sir Jeremy, do you have any accounts like LinkedIn, Facebook?
I have LinkedIn and Facebook. They're all
Mm-hmm.
my carry my name, Jeremy Martin Torres. Uh,
Okay.
I'm not really active per se
Mm-hmm.
in all of those. I'm not really I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
avoid digital
Yes,
fatigue, digital fatigue, you know.
it's okay. Yeah, of course.
But as much as I can, when I see them,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
messages, I mean, when I see them and I have time to think of the answer, then I will answer
Mm-hmm.
as fast as I can. Yeah, Jeremy Martin Torres. So LinkedIn slash I think, then,
Mm-hmm.
and then Jeremy Martin Torres. Same with Facebook, no? Facebook.com/Jeremy Martin Torres.
Okay. So if you to our viewers at home, if you have queries or questions in mind that you want to ask to Sir Jeremy, please visit at Morph Bioplastic on Instagram. Okay? Next slide, please. Now, I would like to thank you, Sir Jeremy, who has been very generous in sharing to us your experience and expertise about bioplastics. A lot of our viewers do not really know about this. Some are very curious. Okay, they do have an open mind. Okay, about this, and one day we know, both of us know that the Philippines, okay, can at least reduce, okay, carbon footprints. I've learned a lot, huh? I've learned a lot. There are a lot of things that I've just seen uh, first sight, okay? And it's actually, I'm very lucky tonight, okay? And I'm sure our audience were able to pick up a lot of good points from the discussion, which they can use to, start out sustainable communities in their respective
Mm.
areas. Once again, thank you, Sir Jeremy, for
Thank you
spending your
also.
time, yes, for tonight's webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
AtoAni. Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so with that, before we end, I would like to call on Miss Jonna Anyora from AtoAni BioPack to share to us about AtoAni BioPack's advocacy and how you can take part, and just like our guest panel for today, how you can share your knowledge as well and be part of our next batch of panelists. Miss Jonna?
Hello, thank you so much for that, Jonas. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Yes, I can hear you.
And before anything else, I would also like to thank Sir Jeremy for sharing insights about bioplastic. So a lot of learnings that we learned today. But yeah, hi, good evening. My name is Jonah. My background is in industrial engineering, but I am passionate about sustainability as well. So with this, I currently lead the partner collaboration function of AtoAni BioPack and product development function of AtoAni. But AtoAni BioPack, we envision to help reduce plastic waste through sustainable biodegradable packaging made from agro-industrial byproducts and materials. And same as our topic for this episode and what our panelist, Sir Jeremy, is working to solve on his work at More BioPlastic or More PH. At AtoAni BioPack, we are finding ways to reduce plastic waste through sustainable packaging that are made from raw materials that would also help reduce agro-industrial waste. So with this, in our own little way, we hope to spread awareness not only about sustainable packaging, but also about zero waste and sustainability practices as what you have learned now about sustainable communities and on other sustainable solutions as well, which we will showcase in our next webinar episodes. So with that, to anyone who wants to take part of this awareness advocacy and share their knowledge, social enterprises, zero waste shops, manufacturers, and zero waste and sustainability advocates, we would love to connect with you. So we are also looking for our next batch of panelists to learn from. If you are interested to become a panelist in one of our webinar episodes, please feel free to send us a message on our Facebook page at AtoAni BioPack or Instagram at AtoAni_BioPack. Or you can also join our community of advocates through our Facebook group AtoAni X Sustainable Packaging Advocates, where we organize webinars such as this, community online events, collaborations, discussions, as well as share first-hand speaker and moderator opportunities. Thank you so much, Jonas.
Thank you so much, Miss Jonna. Okay. With this as a call to action, we encourage everyone to learn and be an advocate for sustainability to the people around us by not only attending this webinar, but also sharing them to your family, friends, and colleagues who might actually be interested so that collectively we can take action. Watch out for more AtoAni Learn series episodes by liking AtoAni BioPack's Facebook page at AtoAni BioPack for zero waste and sustainability topics, and AtoAni's Facebook page at AtoAni PH for agriculture topics. For AtoAni BioPack, we will have two more webinars for September, which is on top of what we will have for AtoAni Feature Series. So see you all on Saturdays of September and October. Next week, we'll be having again our hashtag AtoAni Learn series and hashtag AtoAni Feature series. And be ready to witness some of the great sustainability advocates who care for the environment by sharing their insights about ecological appreciation. Same time, 6 to 7 p.m. So with that, I would like to officially close this webinar. I hope you have learned something from the discussion. Thank you all for tuning in. See you next Saturday, same time, 6 to 7 p.m. And have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much.